G'day guys, how are we? Welcome to the weekly roundup. It is Friday, February 2nd, 2024, and a little bit slow to start the week, I will say, with some of the news, but as the week's gone on, it has gotten busier and busier and busier with more things happening. Just when you think nothing else could happen, something leaps out at you, and I'll get to all the news from around Australia and the world. And hopefully I don't miss anything because that's how quick the news is coming. I bring it out and then an hour later something else is happening. So we'll try our best. But the first big news of the week, now there was two massive announcements. I'm going to go firstly to the George Kambosos Vasily Lomachenko fight has been officially announced. It was announced by the Premier in WA a couple of days ago. We've all known about this for a while, obviously, but it's going to be officially May 12th. 2024 in Perth at the RAC Arena. Tickets are now on sale, so make sure you get onto the sites. I think it's Ticketmaster are selling the tickets. So get in quick. They range from $65, I think, to $135, $195. $275 for the tickets around the stadium, and there's also corporate packages available as well. So make sure you get onto that. I think, in my opinion, the biggest fight involving an Australian this year so far. Arguably, I'm sure there's other people out there that maybe think Tim Tszyu and whatever else might happen might overtake it. But for me, George Kambosos, Vasily Lomachenko, the biggest Australian fight of 2024. Now, it has been released that there'll be two other world title fights on the undercard. I think the other one has been reported that it's going to be Jason Maloney, but the third fight looks like it won't be his brother Andrew. It will be, in fact, Shanika Johnson will be in a world title fight. I'm sure all those details will be released soon. Now, it does make sense when these states put up big money to fund these type of events. They do like a big female involvement in these cards or events. So it makes sense that the WA government will be putting up the money and wanting a big female fight on the card. Shanika Johnson hasn't fought since losing her world title, but she does bring a lot to the table. She is in the Lou DiBella stable, which does make sense as well. So we'll look for an official announcement of those or those other two fights. And of course, Kambosos Lomachenko is official. What I will say also about the press conference, really impressed by both guys. Well, Loma's never really been the one to trash talk, but really impressed by the way both camps handled the announcement. Very respectful of each other, and I think that bodes well for a great fight on May 12th in Perth, Australia. Obviously, it'll be May 11th in the States. The other big fight announced this week, well, it was actually announced last week, but they've had the official face-off and announcement is Tim Tszyu, Keith Thurman. Now, Tim Tszyu has obviously set off to the States to commence his training camp, hence the meeting with Thurman. We'll give it to Keith Thurman. He was very entertaining at the press conference, talking the fight up very well. And I think it's got a lot more people interested in the event that might have been a little bit ho-hum at the start. So really interesting one. I thought Tim Tszyu probably taken aback a little bit by the, what would you call it, the onslaught from Keith Thurman as far as his antics went. But I thought Tim Tszyu handled himself pretty well. Did look a little bit flustered on a couple of occasions, but I thought he handled himself very well. And obviously he'll get more experience at this as these big US fights start happening more regularly. And I thought he did very well. Disappointing that Michael Zarafa wasn't at the announcement or the press conference. I do get it though. He did say after this press conference in an interview with Ben Damon and Jeff Fennick that he just wanted to base himself in Australia. He was settled in his training camp, didn't want to disrupt that camp by going over for a couple of days and coming home. So I completely get it. But it was, all the things aside, a little bit disappointing not to see him there. But again, I understand it. Rolly Romero and Isaac Cruz were Rolly tried his best to get things going. It's a little bit hard when your opponent doesn't speak English, as was Arizlan Lara in talking about Michael Zarafa. So going to be a great fight. Tickets again are on sale for that. I did put on an Instagram video earlier in the week that if you're looking to go, make sure you get on now to tickets. We've got till February 5th for the massive airline sales that are now on. You can get a return flight from Melbourne to LA, and I'm assuming it's the same as Sydney to LA, Brisbane to LA, for under $1,300, which is about less than half of what they were this time last year. So get in quick because prices will rise, and no doubt when the Las Vegas hotels get onto this type of event, the prices do rise as well to cater for that. So get in quick. You're looking anywhere between $250 and $400 a night for accommodation. So we'll touch more about that in the Talking Boxing episodes that will air on Monday night. Another big fight that weekend. We've touched on it last week. Liam Wilson, Oscar Valdez, again, 100% confirmed now. It will take place on March the 29th, which is Good Friday, if you will, at the Desert Diamond Arena in Glendale, Arizona. Now, on the undercard, Seniesa Estrada, 25-0, will defend her undisputed world minimum weight female title against Yokasta Vale, who's 30-2. So that should be a really, really good fight to support Liam Wilson and Oscar Valdez. Now, there has been rumours that this may be potentially for the WBO 130-pound title, because the reigning champion Emmanuel Navarrete is moving up to lightweight to challenge for the WBO vacant lightweight title against Dennis Berinchyk. So that will be interesting. Can we see the possibility of the Wilson-Valdez fight being for that vacant title, considering both of these guys are very, very highly ranked in the WBO at 130? So we'll keep an eye on that. Tickets are available tomorrow, which is Saturday Australian time, Friday outside of Australia, so in the US or whatever. Haven't seen the ticket prices yet, but I'm assuming they'll be very, very good in comparison to the Vegas fights anyway. But do yourself a favour, get down to Phoenix or Glendale in this instance. You'll have to fly to Phoenix and then drive to Glendale after that. It's only about a 15 or 20-minute drive. So if you are going to Vegas for the Zoo Thurman and Zarafa fight as well, then it's only a couple of $100 to fly down to Phoenix, drive to Glendale, and then fly back. So I'm going to be doing it myself. I hope to see you guys there if you decide to make the track. A big cards that have been announced just today. The March Mayhem or Madness, I think March Madness it might be called, excuse me, is the No Limit events. Now there's 5 events on during March. Starting on March the 6th will be Bilal Akaway, 22-1-1. He'll be fighting Reynold Quinlan, 17-13. Akaway's had 2 wins since coming back from a really bad back situation and an operation. There was doubts that he might not fight again. That was obviously since he lost to John Ryder back in 2019. So it's great to see him back. He'll headline that card. Quinlan, the quintessential journeyman, if you will. He's coming off a second-round knockout of Isakali Sanidoko in Fiji. So always comes to fight Quinlan. Not quite sure which one you're going to get. So he has had that big knockout of Jack Bowen, of course, but then has been beaten handily by others. So it'll be interesting to see which one turns up, but great either way to see Bilal Akaway in action. This card, by the way, will be the Wednesday night, Fox, No Limit on Fox, I think it's called. So that will be the first one. Then we go into the first pay-per-view of 2024 outside of the Tim Tszyu one, of course, which will happen after this. I'm talking about the Australian scene, the first Australian pay-per-view. It is Sam Goodman, 17-0, taking on Mark Schliebs, 13-2. Isaac Hardman in the co-main, 15-2. He'll take on Andre Savadera. He's a Venezuelan living in Mexico. He's 15-1, so not a bad record. I haven't had a good chance to really delve into him yet, but I will. That card will take place on March the 13th. Now, I'm not going to dig the boots into No Limit here, but I must admit, a little bit surprised by the fact that Goodman will be fighting Mark Schliebs in a pay-per-view. Now, Sam Goodman, I will say, quite entitled to if you want to call it a tune-up fight or in-between fight, whatever you might want to call it. I get that. I'm not quite sure fighting Mark Schliebs is the answer. Goodman coming off a 12-round decision over Zhong Lu in December. Mark Schliebs now, he's coming off a 5th-round knockout of Shamal Ram Anuj, which is a good knockout, but what they're not going to tell you in the lead-up to it is he was absolutely obliterated in 1 round by Rocky Ogden last June in the fight before that. So a first-round knockout. So, look, for me, I'm going to be honest, it's not a very, appealing fight for me. And I know a lot of fans out there will probably feel the same. I don't mind the tune-up fight for Sam Goodman or the keep busy fight for Sam Goodman. But the fact that we're going to have to pay $60 for this fight or for this card doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I probably wouldn't have minded to have this fight on the undercard and maybe have Isaac Hardman in a really good either Aussie fight or fly in a really handy international. Now, again, I'm not sort of poking anything at Sabadera here. He might be a really good opponent, but I just think for the appeal of the event, wouldn't have minded seeing Isaac Hardman maybe in another all-action, all-Aussie fight, maybe against a Joel Camilleri or one of these type of guys. And then, of course, the argument is there whether that's pay-per-view worthy. I get it that there's pay-per-view quotas to be filled with No Limit, but the fact they've got Sam Goodman against a guy who was blown out in one round last year, it's going to be a tough sell. But we'll see. Just to backtrack a bit, Isaac Hardman coming off a 5th round knockout of Troy Coleman. Sabadera coming off a 2nd round knockout of Oscar Meza. That was in Mexico. And the other card coming up will be March 20th. Nathaniel May taking on Tyson Landry. Nathaniel May coming off a very close loss to Jackson England last year on the Zoo Mendoza undercard. Now, Landry hasn't fought since the mid last year when he was beaten in a 6-round decision by Luke Jackson. So that's, again, a No Limit on Fox, again, March 20th. So, look, not a bad sort of card. I would hope these events will be stacked with some good undercard fights. So that will probably help prop it up. As a standalone, May versus Landry is, again, not overly appealing. But there, as I said, let's hope we get some good undercard fights. It just juices or fats up or plumps up, whatever you want to call it, that card. So we'll keep an eye on that. And then, of course, we have the Liam Wilson, Oscar Valdez, and Tim Tszyu and Keith Thurman fights after that. So a big month for No Limit and Australian boxing fans in March. All right, let's get on to some world news. Last weekend, Jaime Munguia moves to 43-0 with a 9th round stoppage of John Ryder, who drops to 32-7. That was in Phoenix, Arizona. Really good performance by Jaime Munguia. Now puts himself in line for a shot at Canelo Alvarez. Whether it's going to be in May remains to be seen. Could happen in September if it does happen at all. I'm sure it will at some stage, but Oscar De La Hoya really wanting that fight next, although, as I said, I doubt it. I think it will be September if it does happen. On the undercard of that fight, Oscar Collazo moved to 9-0 with a 3rd round knockout of Renares Gutierrez, 10-2. He retained his WBO minimum weight title. We'll just say on that fight, Gutierrez was beaten by our own Alex Winwood last year, so I'm not quite sure why Gutierrez is getting a shot at a world title ahead of Alex Winwood. I know there's a lot of politics involved. I just found it a little bit surprising that he got beaten by Winwood last year and then finds himself in a world title fight. Also on the undercard last week, Gabriela Fundora with a 10th round stoppage of Christina Cruz. She moved to 13-0. Cruz dropped to 6-1. That was for the IBF female flyweight title. Also, I thought it was a little bit premature. I know Christina Cruz did turn her back, but normally the protocol is to stop the action, make sure she hasn't suffered an eye injury or something. They usually give them a chance to at least show them what's happened before stopping the fight. She did turn her back and it was waved off straight away. But we can argue about that. But at the end of the day, Fundora retains her title with a good stoppage of Christina Cruz. Her brother, Sebastian Fundora, now he's on the Tim Tszyu, Keith Thurman undercard. He's fighting Sergey Bohachuk for the now full WBC 154-pound belt. Now, it was going to be for the interim belt on March 30 in Las Vegas at T-Mobile Arena, of course, but now it is being sanctioned for the full WBC belt. This is because they have finally decided to strip Jermall Charlo of that belt. He now only holds the WBA portion of the 154-pound belt. All the other belts have been vacated and will be fought for in due course. Of course, Tim Tszyu has the WBO belt. This is WBC belt, and the IBF will be fought for as well. We spoke about a little bit about Canelo earlier. There are rumours, and I hope it's wrong, that it will be Jermall Charlo, the middleweight version, on September, I think it's the 10th or 12th, I think it is. 2nd week of September anyway. Sorry, I should have checked that with the calendar, but it's the 2nd week of September in Las Vegas. Then the word is it will be Terence Crawford after that. Will we see that? And as I said about Munguia, he's been thrown in the mix as well. I, for one, would like to see him fight Benavidez, but if not, then how good would Terence Crawford be? I still have a sneaking suspicion that we'll see Canelo and either Munguia and Benavidez in September and Tim Tszyu fight Tim Crawford in September. Just a gut feel, but no matter what concoction this comes up with or turns out to be, the fights we're going to get are going to be fantastic later on in the year and pretty much all through 2024. Now, to this weekend, we have Conor Benn. He's heading to Las Vegas to fight Peter Dobson. Conor Benn 22-0, Dobson 16-0. So it should be a really good fight over 12 rounds at the Cosmopolitan in Las Vegas. That will be shown on DAZN at 7 a.m. Australian time. So I'm not quite sure what the times are in the States or England or wherever, but here in Australia, 7 a.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time, so Eastern Time. So Melbourne, Sydney, whatever it might be. Queensland, I think, might be an hour behind, I think, or in front. Whatever it is, you guys will work it out. Now, Shakur Stevenson has announced his retirement, so we'll call it officially, but I think we all know he'll be back. His last fight was a 12-round decision over Edwin De Los Santos in November. Now, he has said he's fed up waiting for the big fights and he's going to hang up the gloves. As I said, I strongly doubt that. I think he'll be back at some stage like Teofimo Lopez has done. I'm sure he will be back. Now, William Zepeda is fighting Maxi Hughes on March 16th in Las Vegas for what was billed as a WBA and IBF 135-pound eliminator. Now, there is word that if Shakur Stevenson does relinquish the belt, that fight could actually be for the vacant WBC belt. So that's also at the Cosmopolitan in Las Vegas. So plenty to play out there. I think Shakur Stevenson will backtrack and keep hold of that title. But as I said, if it doesn't happen, if he does retire, at least for the time being, then Zepeda and Hughes might fight for that vacant title. Now, just to finish on a little bit of I suppose we'll call it a joke. Ryan Garcia, he has a habit of doing this to himself. He's put out there that he wants to fight Devin Haney on April 20th, like he dictates what Devin Haney does. He said he'll decide who and where and everything. He has got the April 20 date penciled in, but he's decided it's going to be Devin Haney. But the joke of this is that he says after Devin Haney, he will potentially fight Naoya Inoue at 140. Now, just keep in mind that Inoue has just moved up and won the undisputed unified the 122-pound division. So that's 122. This would be at 140. I know he was saying it might be down the track, but still, I think he is pretty much overrating himself, and also the fact that Inoue, I don't think it's going to go to 140. But on top of that, he says he will eventually give Gervonta Davis a rematch. This is the same Davis that made him look pretty ordinary when they fought and stopped him. He said if he's lucky, he will give him a rematch, but it will be all on Ryan Garcia's terms. So, Ryan, if I had any advice to you, I would say get off the social media, stop listening to what all the backslappers are saying to you, and pull your head in, realise where you're at in your career, and act accordingly, and maybe request the fight with Devin Haney. Put out that you would like to fight Inoue down the track if he does in fact keep moving up, and then maybe get yourself in a position of power against Gervonta Davis where you can actually dictate to your terms. So that's it for this week, guys. As I said, I'm sure there's something else that will come up in the next couple of days that I've missed. But in the meantime, hope you have a great weekend watching the boxing, and we'll see you next week.